In the 1950s, Detroit did not just build cars, they engineered rolling dreams. This is Chassis and Time, and I spend way too much time thinking about classic automotive design and the golden age of American horsepower. If you're someone who appreciates timeless automotive elegance, jaw-dropping chrome, and the lost art of the American Boulevard cruiser, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, today every modern crossover looks like a wind tunnel-tested jelly bean designed by an algorithm to maximize pedestrian impact scores and fuel economy ratings. But 7 decades ago, an automobile was an unapologetic emotional statement. It was sculpture. It was theater. It was 2.5 tons of hand-formed steel and gleaming bright work announcing that you had arrived in the middle of the American century. Between 1950 and 1959, American manufacturers spent an estimated $500 million annually, an astronomical fortune back then, strictly on restyling tooling to make last year's model look completely obsolete. Think about that for a second. An automaker would scrap multi-million-dollar stamping dies every 12 months just to give a fender a sharper crease or a taillight a bolder crown. It was an era of unchecked optimism and wild aesthetic experimentation, where some designers chased European restraint while others looked straight up at the dawn of the space age. Today, we are breaking down 10 of the absolute most elegant, defining American cars from that unforgettable decade. And we have to start with a machine that chose an entirely different path from the rest of Motown, the 1956 Continental Mark II. Now, you might be thinking that the mid-50s was strictly about gigantic fins and excessive ornamentation, but here's what most people don't realize. While Cadillac and Chrysler were beginning an arms race of soaring tail fins and heavy decorative trim, Ford took a massive, calculated gamble on pure, understated dignity. The Continental Mark II was not even officially badged as a Lincoln. Ford established an entirely separate Continental division, placed Henry Ford's youngest son, William Clay Ford, at the helm, and handed stylist John Reinhardt a blank check with one directive: build the finest, most tasteful luxury automobile on planet Earth. Reinhardt completely rejected Detroit's chrome-heavy circus. Look at the Mark II silhouette. It features an endlessly long hood, a low-slung stance, exquisitely balanced proportions, and that iconic, discreet spare tire bulge sculpted directly into the deck lid. There are no gimmicks here. The body panels were hand-sanded with 4 coats of lacquer, cured, and then hand-rubbed with rotten stone and oil to produce a mirror finish that put factory Cadillacs to shame. Inside, Ford did not settle for domestic vinyl or standard hides. They imported bridge of Weir leather from Scotland, where the cattle were raised in pastures without barbed wire fences so that not a single blemish or scratch would mar the upholstery. Building a car to that fanatical standard is basically financial suicide, and Ford knew it. Each Mark II took approximately twice the labor hours of a standard Lincoln Capri. When it debuted in late 1955 for the 1956 model year, it carried a base sticker price of $10,000. In modern purchasing power, that equates to roughly $110,000, which was twice the cost of a standard Cadillac Series 62 and placed it right in the crosshairs of a bespoke Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. Even at $10,000, Ford lost roughly $1,000 on every single Mark II they assembled. They only built 3,004 units across its 2-year run, including a handful of convertibles, making it one of the rarest post-war production cars in American history. It proved that true luxury never needed to shout. It merely whispered, and the entire room went silent. Next up, let's flip the coin completely. How do you take that same pursuit of prestige and apply it to a body style normally reserved for carrying bags of groceries and hauling kids to Little League? The answer is the 1958 Buick Caballero Estate Wagon. Here's the thing about station wagons in the 50s. Traditionally, wagons were utilitarian workhorses with bolted-on wood paneling or boxy steel pillars designed to haul cargo. But by 1957 and 1958, Buick asked a wonderfully unhinged question: what happens if you take the glamorous, pillarless hardtop silhouette of a Riviera coupe and stretch it over a four-door luxury family wagon? The Caballero was Detroit design daring at its absolute peak. When you rolled down all four side windows, there was no center B-pillar to interrupt the sweeping glass area. The entire cabin opened up like a luxurious yacht. And for 1958, Buick designer Ned Nichols gave the front fascia one of the most intricate, complex grilles ever stamped in automotive history. The famous Fashionaire Dynastar grille, featuring 160 individual chrome-plated die-cast squares designed to catch and refract light like a tray of polished diamond. Now, some critics at the time felt the 1958 Buick styling crossed the line into sheer excess. The body was drenched in stainless steel side sweeps, massive chrome bumper guards, and heavy quad headlight nacelles. But on the Caballero, that bravado worked like magic. It turned a domestic family transporter into an absolute boulevard cruiser. Underneath that massive front hood sat Buick's 364 cubic inch nailhead V8, breathing through a 4-barrel carburetor to produce 300 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. Paired with the variable pitch Dynaflow automatic transmission, this 2.5-ton dream machine could glide down the newly minted interstate highway system at 80 miles per hour without breaking a sweat. It was the most expensive wagon in Buick's 1958 catalog at $3,831, yet it actually outsold its pillared special wagon sibling, moving 4,456 units before GM retired the hardtop wagon body style forever. This brings us directly to our third masterpiece, and this is where it gets really interesting for styling fans. The long, impossibly wide, and ground-hugging 1959 Pontiac Bonneville Sport Coupe. If you look closely at American car design between 1957 and 1959, you will notice a seismic shift in how stance and road presence were defined. Before this car hit showroom floors, Detroit made vehicles look large simply by piling on vertical mass, heavy chrome towers, and upright greenhouse glass. But Pontiac's newly appointed general manager, Seaman Bunky Knudsen, understood that the post-war youth market rejected their father's stodgy, conservative profile. Knudsen famously ordered the old silver streak chrome trim stripped off the hoods, demanded an aggressive stance, and pushed the wheels outward toward the edge of the fenders. Pontiac widened the front and rear track by nearly 5 full inches compared to 1958, giving birth to the legendary wide-track engineering campaign. That was not just slick Madison Avenue marketing. Pushing the wheels out transformed the car's visual center of gravity, making the Bonneville look glued to the tarmac. Up front, 1959 marked the debut of Pontiac's split grille, a design hallmark that would define the brand for the next half-century. Stretching over 18 feet long and roughly 80 inches wide, the Bonneville Sport Coupe featured a razor-thin roofline, vast panoramic glass, and subtle twin rear fins that flowed naturally into the quarter panels rather than stabbing aggressively into the clouds like a Cadillac. Under the hood sat Pontiac's legendary 389 cubic inch V8. In base trim, it delivered 300 horsepower, but buyers looking for real muscle could specify the tri-power setup with 3 2-barrel Rochester carburetors, churning out 315 horsepower and enough low-end torque to liquefy the rear bias ply tires. The marketplace response was staggering. Pontiac surged from 6th to 4th place in industry sales, jumping from roughly 217,000 cars in 1958 to over 382,000 in 1959, with 27,769 buyers driving home in a Bonneville Sport Coupe. Now let's move to our fourth contender, a car that took sleek elegance and injected it with an unmistakable streak of menace, the 1958 Plymouth Fury. Look, when design chief Virgil Exner rolled out Chrysler's Forward Look campaign in 1957, it caught General Motors completely flat-footed. Exner proved that fins were not just decorative tailpieces, they were functional aerodynamic stabilizers that lowered the profile and gave cars a dart-like, projectile silhouette. For 1958, Plymouth perfected that aggressive geometry. The Fury sat low, wide, and predatory, with quad headlamps peering out from beneath heavy brows and high, soaring fins that tapered back from the greenhouse. But here is the fascinating detail that most casual enthusiasts get totally wrong. If you ask 10 people at a car show what color a 1958 Fury should be, 9 will shout autumn red, because of Stephen King's best-selling novel and John Carpenter's iconic horror movie Christine. But factory records confirm that Plymouth never offered the 1958 Fury in red. Every single genuine 1958 Fury rolled off the assembly line wearing a distinctive shade called buckskin beige, accented by sweeping side inserts made of gold-anodized aluminum and matching gold bumper trim. Underneath that beige and gold exterior hid serious mechanical venom. The standard powerplant was the dual Fury 318 V8 with twin 4-barrel carburetors producing 290 horsepower. But for buyers wanting maximum street dominance, Plymouth offered the optional Golden Commando 350 cubic inch V8, generating 305 horsepower and 370 pound-feet of torque. Equipped with the lightning-quick push-button Fireflite 3-speed automatic and Chrysler's race-derived Torsionaire front suspension, the Fury could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 7.7 seconds. In 1958, that was supercar performance, easily capable of humiliating luxury coupes costing twice as much. Only 5,303 Furies were built that year, making surviving, unmolested examples prized collector treasures. Now, you might be wondering, what did American elegance look like before the tailfin wars took over? That brings us to car number 5, the 1953 Oldsmobile 98 Holiday Coupe. In the early 1950s, elegance was defined not by sharp angles, but by rich, substantial volume, graceful ponton curves, and heavy cast metal jewelry. The 98 was Oldsmobile's flagship model, sitting atop General Motors' luxurious C-body platform shared with Cadillac. But what made the Holiday Coupe so revolutionary was its pillarless hardtop roofline. Back in 1949, General Motors had pioneered the hardtop coupe to recreate the airy, breezy look of a convertible while retaining the structural warmth and weather tightness of a fixed steel roof. By 1953, Oldsmobile had perfected this silhouette. Long chrome rub rails flowed seamlessly down the body sides, subtly skirted rear fenders accentuated the car's length, and two-tone paint combinations added an undeniable sense of country club sophistication. Beneath that sculpted hood beat the heart of Oldsmobile's high-compression overhead valve rocket V8. Displacing 303 cubic inches and developing 165 horsepower paired with the smooth 4-speed hydromatic transmission, the 98 was an effortless long-distance highway cruiser. Unlike ultra-exclusive limited-production halo cars, the 1953 Oldsmobile 98 Holiday Coupe achieved greatness through broad commercial prestige. Oldsmobile produced 27,920 Holiday Coupes in 1953 at a base sticker price of $2,771, proving that mass production could achieve museum-grade industrial beauty. As the decade drew toward its close, however, Detroit stylists pushed the theatrical boundaries of luxury to astronomical heights, creating rolling works of art during a time of intense corporate crisis. That brings us directly to our 6th automobile, the mesmerizing 1959 DeSoto Fireflite Sportsman. Here's what most people don't realize about Chrysler's DeSoto division in 1959. Behind the scenes, the brand was fighting for its very survival following the brutal 1958 national economic recession. Yet, despite shrinking budgets and sliding sales numbers, DeSoto's design studio under Virgil Exner produced some of the most flamboyant, unforgettable machinery ever built. The Fireflite Sportsman was an absolute tour de force of late 50s design bravado. Its sweeping side sweeps, towering fin blades, and dramatic quad headlamps created an imposing presence. Up front, a bold triple-opening chrome bumper demanded immediate attention on the boulevard, while DeSoto gave buyers an astonishing catalog of 26 solid colors and over 190 distinct two-tone paint combinations to express their own individual personal style and status everywhere nationwide. Under that expansive steel hood, the Fireflite delivered genuine performance muscle to match its space-age styling. A 383 cubic inch V8 fed by a heavy 4-barrel carburetor pushed out 325 horsepower and 425 pound-feet of torque, transferring power through Chrysler's legendary 3-speed TorqueFlite automatic. Despite tipping the scales at over 4,000 pounds, it accelerated with silky smoothness. But here is the heartbreaking reality. The two-door Fireflite Sportsman carried a hefty base price of $3,831, resulting in only 1,393 two-door coupes and 2,364 four-door hardtops leaving the factory in 1959. Chrysler's corporate restructuring and internal competition from Chrysler Plymouth dealers sealed the brand's fate, and DeSoto ceased production entirely by November 1960. Today, seeing a genuine 1959 Fireflite Sportsman gliding down the road is like spotting a majestic comet from a bygone galaxy. Now, let's pivot from two-ton luxury cruisers to a vehicle that proved American elegance could be light, agile, and athletic: the 1959 Chevrolet Corvette. Here's the thing about the first-generation C1 Corvette. When Chevrolet launched it back in 1953 with a fiberglass body and the tepid blue flame six-cylinder, it nearly died in the cradle. By 1958, Harley Earl had slathered the Corvette in chrome, giving it quad headlights, non-functional simulated hood louvers nicknamed washboard hoods, and twin heavy chrome spears running across the rear deck lid. But when Bill Mitchell took over GM styling, he understood that sports cars require pure, unadulterated form. For 1959, Mitchell stripped away the fake hood louvers and shaved the trunk spears completely. The result was a dramatic masterclass in aesthetic refinement. The 1959 Corvette retained its signature concave side coves, often painted in contrasting Roman red, snowcrest white, or tuxedo black, while presenting a cleaner, far more muscular silhouette that looked remarkably cohesive from every viewing angle. Under Chief Engineer Zora Arkastuntov, the mechanicals matched the gorgeous bodywork. The 283 cubic inch small block V8 was available in multiple configurations, crowned by Rochester mechanical fuel injection delivering 290 horsepower, achieving that mythical milestone of 1 horsepower per cubic inch. Mated to a Borg-Warner T10 4-speed manual transmission and positraction rear axle, the 59 Fury Corvette could hit 60 in under 7 seconds and hold its own against Europe's finest roadsters at Sebring. Sales exploded to 9,670 units, establishing the Corvette permanently as America's sports car champion. Now, if the Continental Mark II was Ford's exercise in quiet dignity, our eighth car was General Motors' answer to total, uncompromising, cost-no-object engineering: the 1957 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham. Look, the Eldorado Brougham was not merely an upscale Cadillac. It was essentially a GM Motorama dream concept car driven straight onto public streets. Designed under Ed Glowacz, it stood just 55.5 inches tall, nearly 4 inches lower than a standard Series 62 sedan, thanks to a revolutionary tubular X-frame chassis. The roof was fabricated from brushed stainless steel, giving the greenhouse a satin sheen that looked like polished aerospace alloy. The rear doors were rear-hinged suicide doors that locked electronically when the car was placed in gear, and because there was no center B-pillar, opening both doors revealed an unobstructed, panoramic interior salon. Inside that salon, Cadillac included technology that modern luxury cars are still trying to match. It featured the world's first true memory front power seats, automatic trunk opening and pull-down, factory air conditioning with individual rear ducting, power door locks, and a self-leveling pneumatic air suspension system that automatically adjusted ride height based on passenger payload. But the real obsession was in the bespoke glove compartment appointments. Standard equipment included 6 magnetized stainless steel drinking tumblers that snapped firmly to the glovebox door, a tissue dispenser, a cigarette humidor, a compact mirror, a leather notebook with a mechanical pencil, and a magnetized arpege perfume atomizer by Lanvin filled with genuine French fragrance. Powering this mechanical palace was Cadillac's 365 cubic inch V8 fitted with dual 4-barrel carburetors, producing 325 horsepower. But the true astronomical figure was the price tag. The 1957 Eldorado Brougham carried an MSRP of $13,074. To put that in perspective, a standard 1957 Cadillac Series 62 cost $4,781, and a brand new Continental Mark II cost $10,000. The Brougham was more expensive than a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. GM built only 400 units in 1957 and 304 in 1958, hand-assembling every car at a dedicated facility in Detroit. Industry analysts estimate GM lost over $10,000 on every Eldorado Brougham sold, treating the car strictly as a technical tour de force to demonstrate global engineering supremacy. Now, while Cadillac pursued opulent luxury and electronics, Chrysler engineered a car that merged aristocratic styling with brutal, track-dominating power, the legendary 1955 Chrysler C-300. Here's what most people don't realize about the birth of the American muscle car. Long before the 1964 Pontiac GTO hit the scene, Chrysler created the high-performance Gentleman's Express. Stylist Virgil Exner performed an ingenious design mashup. He took the clean hardtop coupe body of the Chrysler New Yorker, bolted on the aggressive dual-egg crate front grille from the flagship Imperial, and deleted virtually all extraneous side chrome moldings. The result was a muscular, athletic silhouette that looked uncluttered, intimidating, and exceptionally tasteful. But the real magic lived under that long front hood. Chrysler's 331 cubic inch firepower Hemi V8, outfitted with solid lifters, a high-lift camshaft, and dual 4-barrel carburetors beneath twin teardrop air cleaners. It developed exactly 300 gross horsepower, making the C-300 the first American regular production automobile to break the magical 300 horsepower barrier. Chrysler backed this powerhouse with heavy-duty suspension, stiffer shocks, and massive drum brake. On NASCAR speedways, team owner Carl Kiekhaefer fielded a fleet of white C-300s that utterly decimated the competition. Driver Tim Flock captured 18 victories and won the 1955 Grand National Championship, turning the Chrysler 300 into an overnight motorsport legend. Priced at $4,109, only 1,725 units were built in 1955, launching the historic decade-long dynasty of the Chrysler 300 letter cars. It demonstrated to buyers across North America that a full-size luxury coupe could deliver blistering quarter-mile acceleration without sacrificing an ounce of highway prestige or curb appeal during travel. Now, you might be thinking, did American buyers in the mid-50s prefer raw Hemi muscle, or did they gravitate toward the quiet restraint of the Continental Mark II and the gadget-filled majesty of the Eldorado Brougham? That debate raged across suburban driveways and country clubs throughout the late 50s. But this creative tension between sheer high-speed performance and theatrical luxury is precisely what made Detroit the design capital of the world. Automakers were not building appliances. They were building aspirational machinery tailored to distinct American philosophies. And if you want to see what happened when Detroit decided to take every single late 50s design trope, massive fins, compound curved glass, space-age cockpits, and roaring V8 power, and dial the volume knob all the way up to 11, look no further than car number 10, the 1959 Dodge Custom Royal Lancer. Look, the 1959 Dodge was the grand finale of Virgil Exner's forward-look styling philosophy before Chrysler transitioned to unibody construction in 1960. And Dodge stylists held absolutely nothing back. stretching 18.1 feet in total length on a massive 122-inch wheelbase. The Custom Royal sat low and broad. Up front, heavy hooded chrome eyebrows arched over quad headlamps, flanking a floating horizontal grille that looked like an air intake from a supersonic jet fighter. Along the sides, sweeping stainless moldings accentuated the car's length, culminating in soaring, jet-inspired, swept-wing tail fins that rose dramatically from the rear quarters. In two-door hardtop Lancer configuration, the absence of a B-pillar created a floating roof effect over a vast glass greenhouse with a dramatic compound curved windshield. Step inside the cabin, and you were greeted by pure 1950s space-age theater. The dashboard featured Dodge's innovative Safety Eye horizontal speedometer, which illuminated green from 0 to 30 miles per hour, shifted to amber between 30 and 50, and glowed blood red when exceeding 50 miles per hour to alert the driver. To make entering and exiting the car effortless, Dodge offered optional front swivel seat. When you opened the door and pulled a small lever, the entire bucket seat smoothly rotated outward 40 degrees over the rocker panel so you could step into the vehicle without stooping or wrinkling your evening clothes. Under that expansive hood, the Custom Royal backed up its bold exterior with serious Mopar muscle. Standard power came from the 361 cubic inch Ram Fire V8, producing 305 horsepower, but enthusiasts ordering the Super D500 package received dual 4-barrel Carter carburetors, pushing output to 345 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque. Managed by the push-button TorqueFlite 3-speed automatic, this land yacht moved with startling authority. Dodge produced 6,278 custom Royal two-door hardtop Lancers in 1959, marking the absolute zenith and final chapter of Chrysler's wild-finned era before clean, slab-sided styling took command in 1960. When we step back and examine these 10 automobiles together, an eye-opening reality emerges about mid-century America. Between 1950 and 1959, the United States was riding an unprecedented wave of post-World War II economic prosperity, technological expansion, and geopolitical dominance. The aerospace industry was breaking the sound barrier, commercial aviation was transitioning to jetliners like the Boeing 707, and the space race was officially underway. For the average American consumer, an automobile was not merely a tool for daily commuting. It was a tangible symbol of national optimism and personal success. Detroit stylists functioned like couturiers in Paris, translating the public's fascination with rockets, radar domes, and jet afterburners directly into stamped sheet metal, cast chrome nacelles, and compound curved panoramic glass. A new car parked in a suburban driveway announced to the entire neighborhood that the future had arrived, and it was bright, bold, and unapologetically glamorous. This is where it gets really interesting when you compare the underlying design philosophies of that decade. You had styling titans like Harley Earl at General Motors, who viewed automotive design as dynamic, three-dimensional sculpture designed to captivate the eye from 30 paces away. Earl believed in dramatic emotional impact, initiating the tailfin revolution on the 1948 Cadillac after being inspired by the twin-boom Lockheed P-38 Lightning fighter plane. On the other side, you had Virgil Exner at Chrysler, who approached design with aerodynamic architectural precision. Exner believed tailfins were not merely decorative flourishes, but functional air rudders that stabilized large passenger vehicles at high interstate cruising speeds. And standing in stark contrast to both was the Continental Mark II team, who proved that true prestige could reject futuristic ornamentation altogether, embracing European proportions, long hood elegance, and timeless handcrafted coach-building simplicity. Here's what most people don't realize when looking at these iconic machines through modern eyes. We will never see an era like the 1950s again in automotive history. Today, global safety regulations, computerized wind tunnel aerodynamics, strict pedestrian collision standards, and universal platform sharing mean that modern cars are engineered by algorithms to converge on nearly identical teardrop profiles. In 1955, however, a styling department could sketch an audacious shape on a drafting board, model it in clay, cast it in heavy metal, and send it into dealer showrooms without a single computer algorithm intervening. Every car had a recognizable face, a distinctive mechanical character, and an unmistakable stance on the road. You could stand on a street corner at dusk and tell a Pontiac from a Plymouth, or an Oldsmobile from a Dodge, simply by the outline of its roofline or the gleam of its chrome trim. That freedom created a brief, 10-year explosion of industrial art that remains unmatched in the history of human transportation. Automotive engineers and styling visionaries were encouraged to push materials and styling concepts to their absolute breaking point, producing cars that were as daring as they were memorable. It was a golden, unrepeatable moment where engineering ambition, manufacturing courage, and sheer visual artistry collided to create true rolling sculpture that captured the imagination of the entire planet and defined what personal mobility could achieve across great American open highways during that historic, prosperous post-war decade of rapid national growth, engineering mastery, unlimited ambition, and endless boundless optimism. Now, I want to leave the ultimate verdict directly in your hands. If you were handed the keys today and could park only one of these 10 legendary 1950s icons in your dream garage, which one would you choose? Would you take the quiet, hand-built elegance and aristocratic dignity of the 1956 Continental Mark II, or would you prefer the uncompromising, gadget-packed space-age luxury of the $13,000 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham with its brushed stainless steel roof? Or maybe you are drawn to the pavement-shredding NASCAR pedigree of the 1955 Chrysler C-300, or the sheer, unapologetic chrome spectacle and swept-wing tailfins of the 1959 Dodge Custom Royal Lancer? Drop your personal favorite down in the comments below, and let me know why. And while you are down there, tell me which classic American automobile from the 1950s you think deserved a spot on this list. Did we miss the drop-dead gorgeous 1953 Buick Skylark Anniversary convertible? What about the iconic 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air Sport Coupe, the sleek 1957 Ford Thunderbird, or the stunning 1956 Lincoln Premier? There were simply too many unforgettable rolling masterpieces produced during that golden decade to fit into a single countdown, and I want to see which forgotten gems you want us to feature in an upcoming deep dive. Every time you look closely at one of these post-war legends at a concours event or museum, you realize that they are far more than just vintage transportation. They are mechanical time capsules preserving an era when American design possessed genuine courage and limitless imagination. Back then, automotive styling studios were led by artists who dared to take monumental risks, sculptors who shaped sheet metal with emotion, and engineers who built high-compression V8 engines to dominate open interstate highways. Owning, restoring, or simply admiring these machines connects us to a proud chapter of industrial history when design was not constrained by corporate fear or algorithmic uniformity. Whether it was the whisper-quiet prestige of hand-rubbed lacquer on a Continental Mark II or the thunderous roar of a Chrysler Hemi crossing the finish line at Daytona, these automobiles proved that beauty and engineering excellence could transform everyday mobility into an unforgettable art form that continues to inspire enthusiasts across generations. And if you love this era as much as I do, the story certainly does not end with luxury coupes and sports cars. As we saw with the Buick Caballero, the 1950s proved that even practical family haulers designed to carry 6 passengers and a trunk full of vacation luggage could look just as stunning and dramatic as a country club boulevard hardtop. In fact, we recently produced a complete deep dive video exploring the most elegant, wild, and forgotten American station wagons of the 1950s, from pillarless hardtop estate wagons to rare wood-trimmed beauties that ruled suburban America. Click the video on your screen right now to dive straight into that fascinating, chrome-filled journey with us right this second without missing a single beat. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the greatest golden eras of classic automotive history. Thank you so much for watching Chassis in Time. Keep your passion for classic iron burning bright, enjoy every open mile of road ahead, and I will catch you in the very next exciting video coming up very soon.